Well, welcome in. It is the Second Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your recap episode for this week's PGA Championship. A new champion has been crowned. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Hello, Greg.
Gentlemen, what a week this was. My goodness, did this have a lot of twists and turns in it. And you look at the leaderboard at the end of the day, and it'd be easy to say, I told you so. But if you watched it, there were a lot of moments where you may have had some questions.
And risking life and limb, please be careful. Mark Immelman is here. Hello, Mark.
Hi, boys. Yeah, on my way to watch my favorite golfer in all the world, my daughter, in a high school golf tournament tomorrow. But I had to join you just because I wanted to hear Greg go, well, I didn't want to tell you so, but I told you so that Scottie was going to win, so I had to be here for that.
Yeah, it is very good. And just as we knew it was going to be a coronation, Scottie Scheffler is your 107th PGA champion, but it did not necessarily go as planned. Mark, let's get through this here because the first 9 holes that he played today were sloppy. He turned in 2 over par, and Bryson Dechambeau, Jon Rahm, and everybody else was getting towards the top of the board.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, Rick, because when I looked at the hole locations before the round, I was like, man, these are set up to have someone have a little fun, make a few birdies. And then when the leaders got on the golf course, there was just enough wind, in my opinion, where it made some of the easier hole locations a little hard to get to. And so I sort of turned around there because I was with Bryson, when he was just made a really soft bogey on the 5th after being in the middle of the fairway. I was like, gosh, there's no one really making a big move. And if you were just barely under in a leader, you were pretty well moving up the leaderboard because it played kind of strange. Then later on in the day, it seemed like the winds got a bit more predictable, maybe a little less gusty. And then, the wheat sort of got separated from the chaff. But yeah, it was kind of odd because that opening stretch of holes was pretty challenging.
And we saw shots, Greg, that, Scottie Scheffler, I'm thinking on 1, he was in the left side bunker. On 2, he's in the pine straw, but he's actually able to make birdie from there, but another loose swing. And 3 and 4 weren't particularly pretty either. It was just, he was fighting the left miss, but the ability for him to rebound basically on the walk from 9 green to 10 tee. I don't know what was going through his brain. I don't know if Ted Scott said something to him, but it felt like a completely different 9.
Yes, it was a huge turnaround, and I thought there were a couple of really big shots in that turnaround, like the tee shot at 10, where finally it doesn't go left, and he's able to make birdie there. While he was in the left bunker on his second shot too, I think that was a pretty good swing that ends up in there. But the putt from 9 feet 4 inches was at a really shaky time. Jon Rahm had tied him for the lead. And was continuously giving himself birdie putts. And it was looking like it was going to go in a different direction. And the bunker shots, Trevor, Mark, your brother was saying, or your son rather, was saying that there were, his bunker shots kept squirting out to the right. It did on 10 as well. But he made that putt and it just settled everything down. And then from that point on, he gave himself, he was inside of 25 feet. And playing from the fairway on 11, 12, and 13 before he got to 14 and 15, where he was really able to seal the deal. So I think that was a really important momentum shift where he was able to reset and say, hey, I'm not losing this thing. I'm still in control.
Rick, as I was driving along, I had Sirius XM on the radio, and it's Gary Williams' post-game show, and they patched right into Scottie's winner's presser, and someone pitched him the questions like, look, you had a case of the lefts going on. What was happening? And he goes, yeah, I was sort of fighting my swing, but then on holes 8 and 9, I hit 2 really good tee shots. And I looked up and I was like, dang, I hit those squarely. So he looked at Teddy, apparently, and I'm paraphrasing what Scottie said. And he was like, Ted, I hit those as well. I mean, I don't know what's going on. And Ted was like, well, I don't know either. Maybe you should just aim a little bit more right. So Scottie says then on 10T, honestly, no lie, Scottie goes, well, I just squared up my shoulders a bit more and I hit it down the fairway. And then, he felt like the approach shot or the tee shot on 11, because it's such a difficult tee shot. And then the approach on 11 kind of got him on the way. But honestly, he said he just made this minor adjustment in the shoulder line, and the rest was a very solid back nine.
Yeah, well, the back nine was solid indeed. A birdie on 10, birdies on 14, 15. He would make his vintage bogey on the last, but it's never a problem because it just takes a six-shot victory into a 5-shot victory for Scottie Scheffler. And Greg, when I look at this round, it's that little subtle adjustment where he goes from really not hitting any shot that he wants to really not missing a shot on the second nine, and to go from literally being down. I mean, there was a time where Jon Rahm had the lead of this golf tournament to then again running away and actually extending this lead that he took into Sunday morning is unbelievable.
There was I was asking people on Twitter this morning, what you thought he would win by, because he has kind of an incredible record going here. 8 of his 15 wins on the PGA Tour are by 3 or more shots. Now 4 of them are by 5 or more. He also has 6 wins by 4 or more. So really impressive margins of victory for Scottie Scheffler and his wins. And so I asked this question, and I said, I think he's going to win by 5. And somebody in the middle of this, when it got really tight, sent me an emoji, like a thinking emoji. And I was like, yeah, I'm watching the same thing you're watching. It's not going the way that I thought. And then here we are at the end, and he wins by 5. It's an incredible testament to his persistence, his general ability. He also said something in that press conference Mark was listening to. I'm not going to keep. He told himself, I'm not going to keep hitting it left, like statistically. he said it like that. So there's this simple way where he understands that if I just do what I do, it's going to lead to a win. And so there's no panic. I'm going to be okay because I'm just that good. Now, he didn't say that part, but that's ultimately what happens. And what I would tell him if I was talking with him. So just so impressive to go from that kind of panicky state where things are moving a little fast, and world number 1, who's been such a dominant closer over the last 3 years. You could say 4. I mean, I guess we're a little past 3 now, but he's been such a dominant closer in that stretch. And it looked like he was kind of a regular PGA Tour player on the front 9, and he looked like world number 1 on the back.
I think, yes, please.
No, Rick, I wanted to say this real fast on the heels of what Greg said there. I think that's so appropriate. And Scottie doesn't have to say he's the best because people know he's the best. That's the reality of the thing. And what impressed me so much is my entire career as a former player and then a golf teacher to know some elite golfers and now a broadcast guy. I've always maintained, and I kind of learned this from Nick Price, that, the guy who wins the 72-hole event is the guy who can navigate his bad stuff and not get too much damage done. And Scottie, by his own admission, was like, I didn't have it over the first 2 rounds, but I just kind of pieced it all together and I stayed in the game. And then on Saturday, he was sort of just lurking around the place and then made a couple bogeys. Then all of a sudden, he hit that spurt, that gap, that gas, where he finished with a flourish to build that big lead. And then came out this morning, was a little on the ragged side, but, he just waits patiently for that statistical probability you speak of, just to kind of arrive. And it takes a lot of mental acumen to do that, because it's so easy to panic when stuff's going wrong, especially when you're under pressure. But he never seems to panic. I mean, I don't know what's happening inside and behind his eyes, but he's like, I'm going to be all right. I'm just going to keep swinging. And because I know over the long haul, I'm probably going to be around and about the lead.
Yeah, and that consistency and that trust that Mark is referring to, Greg, it really shows itself on the Green Mile, the closing stretch 16, 17, and 18, because while his peers were vomiting all over themselves, as I would if I was playing the Green Mile, Scottie Scheffler was resolute. I mean, Jon Rahm bogeyed 16, doubled 17, and doubled 18. Bryson DeChambeau had his issues with it yesterday, and then also bogeyed 18 today after parring the first two legs. And then Scottie, as mentioned, closes yesterday with birdies on 17 and 18. Par 16, par 17 today, and then the putt that he missed on 18, as we talked about, a meaningless putt. He could have six putted from there to win the PGA Championship for the lone bogey during that stretch today.
Yes, and there's a couple of things with this. One, there's a big difference. Like what he did in the Green Mile yesterday is why he was able to play it so consistently or so easily today, because he separated himself from the field in that moment yesterday. And I think there's a couple things to that. One, on these really challenging holes, sometimes in a strange way, strategy is removed. Like 17 and 18 to me, there's not much strategy. You got to step up and hit a shot. And it doesn't make them bad holes by any means, because there's plenty of strategy through the rest of the golf course. But on the 18th tee, there is nothing you can do but stripe it down the middle. It's a 500-yard par four. You're not going to hit a hybrid off the tee short of the bunkers. It's too long. So you just have to step up there and hit the fairway. And that's what Scottie does. Now, he didn't have to today, and he missed that fairway. But ultimately, he doesn't have to take on a crazy shot. He doesn't have to try to make a birdie. He's in the bunker on 16. He just has to keep it out of the water. So he takes a club that isn't going to get to the green. That takes the water out of play. And he's able to give himself an angle for an easy pitch shot. That's where the strategy comes into play once you have the lead. Now, how do I manage this? And I thought he did that brilliantly. I mean, it obviously didn't take much today. He just had to avoid the water, and he was going to be fine. So there are just so many examples through this tournament where he proved to be the best player in the world and a very worthy three-time major champion.
Three-time major champion, indeed. And let me just go through this resume. I won't go through the whole thing, but here are the highlights. 15 PGA Tour wins, including those three major championships. He won the Players twice and did it back-to-back, the first to ever do that. He's also won an Olympic gold medal, something that will seemingly appreciate over time as we go through the next century or so. So, Mark, he started winning about 3 years ago. He hasn't slowed down much since then, and he has had an entire career since 2022.
Yeah, I mean, now he's not on the doorstep of the Hall of Fame. I think as soon as he becomes eligible, he'll be a first ballot selection. And he's a Hall of Fame human being as well. We talk about the accomplishments and stuff, but I still find it fascinating how he just keeps everything so much in perspective, and he understands that golf is what he does and golf isn't who he is. I mean, as a father, I was sort of heartened at the fact that when he's doing the interviews and stuff, he's got little Bennett on his hip, and then Bennett doesn't want to leave Dad, and so he takes him into scoring. And he plops him down on the ground there with something to play with in his hat, and he's got signing the scorecard to win a major championship. Now think about that, the human element to that, versus any other professional athlete or golfer when they go and sign the winning scorecard. It's all focused. There's a caddy in there double checking with you. It's like real big time business. But for Scott, he's like, I'm a dad, and yes, I'll sign your scorecard, but this is my first priority. Is this kid next door to me? And I feel like that may be some of the secret sauce and why he's just so cool with if things go high or things go low. He's like, I live a pretty simple life, and this is what makes me tick. And then look, on top of that, I feel like he's a faith-based man with a whole lot of fire in his belly, and that's showing in that glittering resume you described.
Well, next week will be 140 weeks as the number one player in the world, and he will not turn 29 until next month. So he has seemingly still plenty of runway ahead of him. Mark, you're making me very nervous. I do not like doing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to open it up to you. Do you have any final thoughts about the Masters? About the PGA Championship? Because I'm getting you out of this podcast.
Yeah, look, it's great to be with you. It was great to see you guys. I felt like it was a tremendous week, and really in a way, Quail Hollow sort of produced a worthy champion, because remember Thursday when we were all talking where it's like, well, what's happening on the leaderboard? Well, at the end of it all, we had like a bunch of show ponies coming down the stretch there, and what was
Oh man,
Okay.
we lost him. Obviously, there is nothing like getting Mark Immelman, as he says, show ponies. It just cuts out. That was the perfect moment.
Yeah, I guess he was on the tail end of that anyway. But to finish on his thoughts, it's something that we talked about after every round. Like this is going to change. His leaderboard's going to change, and that's what happens in major venues, and it's what happened at Quail Hollow because the greens firmed up, the wind picked up, the pressure started to mount, and all of a sudden the guys who are pretty well trained in it for the most part, and a couple of new faces, they were able to hang around, and the best of the bunch ended up getting it done.
Joseph said Mark was starting to defend the course and he got dropped. Just a little, yeah. The golf gods are raining down on Mark. I'm surprised it lasted for 15 minutes. That was actually a better connection than I thought it was going to be. Actually, I forgot to mention this earlier. We were coming back from coming back from the set to the media center, and there was a really big backup of people trying to get out to the rideshare, trying to get out to the buses. And as we were walking through, someone yelled out, "The second cut." And that was our first shout out that I have ever gotten. So
in the wild.
So that person, if you identify yourself to me, I will send you something. Now we have to come up with a way that I know someone's not just going to say that was me. So you have to tell me your location. Tell me where that happened and describe it, and I will know if that is true, and then I will send you some stuff.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. The way to do it. I was standing blank.
This was on my right, this was on my left, this is the direction, this is what it was.
The more details, the better. Paint a picture for us.
Yeah, the more details, the better, because I'll probably forget soon. But yes, that was very cool. Now, I've got other Scottie Scheffler stuff here, Greg, because one of the subplots for the week was around Rory McIlroy and the driver testing that he failed earlier this week. Scottie revealed in his presser that his driver also failed the compliance testing this week, and he had to put his backup into play. Didn't seem to have much problem with it.
No, it worked quite well for him. Who knows? Maybe that's why he was going left on the front nine. It's a really challenging thing. We talked about this yesterday as well. It's a really challenging thing for players to find a driver, and even if it's the same model, they're looking for something that's just right. They're picking I mean, look at what Bryson does. I know we're going to talk about him, but he is nitpicking that equipment constantly. And he does it probably more than anybody else, but he's not the only one. These aren't just clubs that are off the rack that these guys are using, because they demand a lot of precision, and they don't want to alter their motion to fit the club. They find the club that fits their motion. So for Scottie to be able to do that, I mean, he could have gotten lucky and gotten one that was a really close replica. Perhaps it wasn't luck at all, and he was just prepared with the backup beforehand. Another very real possibility when he went through his initial testing. I'm going to make sure I'm ready with two of them. That would be a great idea. So it seems like it's a factor. I'm honestly, I'm not sure why it's such a big story, other than it affected Rory McIlroy's play. It seems like people have some questions about it, and I don't find it to be very scandalous, Rick.
I also don't find it to be all that interesting, quite honestly. It happens all the time. I guess the only interesting thing about it is whether it should be happening more frequently, which is kind of what Scottie Scheffler was alluding to. Is if you're going, so the way they do it right now, as far as I'm aware, is that they test, a third of the field or something like that every week, and it's randomized and all this stuff. Well, I guess some of the calls for action might just be to test everybody every week is kind of what Scottie Scheffler was alluding to.
Yeah, and I understand that. There's a couple of factors in this. One, to Scottie's point, it's so this is a perfect world because there's logistics to this. But before we get to the logistics, in a perfect world, there's no reason to test some players. Like, for instance, if you're testing college football players for steroids, having random tests is a good preventative measure. You might get tested, you might not. You're not going to know, so you can't, get ready for the test, so to speak. So it works. And that way you don't have to go through the testing for every single athlete every single time. Hopefully the fact that you might get tested is preventative enough. This isn't a situation. Nobody's trying to get away with anything, right? Nobody's like making their driver intentionally hot. They want to play clubs that are conforming, and the manufacturers are only going to make clubs that are conforming. So no one's trying to get away with anything. We're just trying to make sure that it hasn't gone too far. So that being said, testing everybody makes sense. It's not really, you're not trying to call anybody out. You're just making sure that every club is conforming. But that being said, it's not necessarily an easy process, right? It's not like, you hand it to the guy at registration and he just looks it over. It takes an element of time. I don't remember the exact details on that, like how long each driver test takes, but it is a fairly significant process, and that's why they test a third of the field. I remember this vaguely from 2019 when Xander Schauffele ironically had a driver that was too hot. So look, I get it. Yes. And ideally you test everybody's driver, but I don't think it's really that big of a deal.
I agree with you. And I think we should spend any more oxygen on a Sunday night after a major champion was crowned. So let's continue to roll on here and roll into Bryson DeChambeau. He's actually one of the three who tied for second, a three-way tie: Harris, English, Davis, Riley, and Bryson. Bryson turned in 34 today, Greg. That was 1 under, and he played his second 9 at even par to card this 70. He does this interesting thing, right? And I want to get your thoughts on this because we were talking about this a little bit on the course of, HQ and whatnot. But, he has this weapon, obviously the driver, that continually puts him into a spot that is probably the weakest part of his game, which are like these half wedges, 3/4 wedges. He's got these big gaps between his clubs, right? Like it's just kind of awkward for him because of the way he plays it, but because he drives it so far, he's constantly hitting from that spot.
And it's something that works. And I think that it's a really good tool in bogey avoidance, right? If you can be a good chipper and putter, like he has become. I mean, he's always been a good putter, but his short game has gotten a whole lot better than when he first came out on the PGA Tour. So that driver is a massive weapon for bogey avoidance, because the shots that we're judging are, like you said, 3/4 wedges. And generally, you're not missing greens when those are bad. They go to, 25 feet instead of 18 feet kind of a thing. So it's a great way to play defense in a strange way. But you'd like to see a transformation like Dustin Johnson went through back in the 2007, 2016 kind of time frame, if I remember correctly, where he really honed in on his wedges and dialed in his numbers and really learned. And I would expect Bryson to be able to do that. I know that he's got big gaps between his clubs. I know that that's going to have an effect, but with all of his systems, with his clock system and with all the launch monitors that he's regularly using and his precision when it comes to seemingly every area of the game, I would expect these things to get a little better. And I think he'll work to figure it out. But right now it seems like he's just looking at the equipment. Like he's got a ball that spins too much. It's not quite what he wants. So that's it's very interesting.
He is very much an equipment solution guy.
Which is a good thing, Rick. Like there's an element of that that's good, because he's not going to go down a rabbit hole tinkering with things that mess up his techniques, so he could stay consistent. And look, his performances in majors is undeniable. So I have a hard time nitpicking this guy based on what he finished at the Masters, 6th.
Yeah. So here I was going to read this. I had it up right in front of me. Here's his last 6 majors. So T6 at last year's Masters, runner-up at the PGA. He wins the U.S. Open. He misses the cut at last year's Open. Then he finished 5th, T5 at this year's Masters, and T2 this week.
Right. So, like, that's pretty darn good. It's better than everybody else. Just about. I think Xander, coming into this, I had some numbers on this, but I think Xander was the best over the last 50 major rounds. And Bryson was right there, depending on what category you looked at. You know what it was? If you looked at 50 rounds, Bryson was 12th in this field in strokes gained in majors. Strokes gained total. If you went down to 36, he moved up to 4th. If you went down to 24, he went to 2nd. So, there's been this improvement over time of Bryson in the majors, and a lot of that comes from the record that you just shared. So there are things that I believe he can tighten down, and I know that he'll be working on. But that weapon is not something that you go change, because look what it's led to.
Oh, he's completely different. No, yeah, he'll figure out the wedges. Don't worry about that one bit.
It is why he didn't win, though. It is why he didn't win this week.
100%. But the driver is the reason why he was in position to win.
Right. So you got a little. He's not going to go. He should not try to go become Scottie Scheffler.
No. Right.
They play different styles. They can both work, and he's beaten Scottie plenty in majors. But Scottie's style won this week.
I want to give it a shout out to Harris English here, who shot a 65 en route to this T2. And, we talked, I think we talked a little bit about Harris earlier this week, because he is, the type of player when you expect the winning score to not be as deep under par, and the value of a par goes up. Harris English is that type of player. Now, I'll read you off his scorecard here because it's pretty impressive. He turned in 34, Greg, which is 1 under, and then he birdied 11, 12, 14, 15, and 18. He came in 31 to shoot this 65. What I thought was funny is he spoke with, I think it was with Amanda afterwards, and he said, okay, you're the clubhouse leader. You're at 6 under par. You going to hang around? And he was like, no. Scotty's got this. I'm not hanging around to see this any longer.
Yeah, that's very realistic and unsurprising from him. What is surprising is the way he got this done, Rick. He was 2nd in the field in strokes gained approach, but get this. He hit 55 greens in regulation.
Wow.
The next best was Nikolai Højgaard, who hit 50.
Wow.
Harris English hit 55. 14 on Friday, 14 on Saturday, 15 on Sunday. As the golf course got firmer, the conditions got firmer, he started hitting more greens. I think he was on one of my 6K plays on our Tuesday show.
I think that's right.
That's probably where he came up, and because of what you just mentioned. But his iron play was I felt like he could do it in spite of his iron play. And his iron play really got the job done for him this week.
Yeah, he's fun. He's had a great year, right? He won the Farmers. He played decently well again at the next edition, also back at Torrey Pines at the Genesis. And now I'm gonna sneeze here, Greg. So I'm gonna give this back to you. But he's
the only longer golf course than this on the PGA Tour is Torrey Pines, where he won. And it just speaks to that, what you said, the value of par. Like, he's even par going into the day. he's way back on the leaderboard, and he gets hot on this back nine, and all of a sudden it's a T2. It's wild how that happened, which does happen in majors, but it's a testament to his consistency and his proficiency in major championship type tests.
I'm going to show you Jon Rahm's scorecard here, and you might need to avert your eyes because it's a little bit scary, particularly in the bottom right-hand corner of that scorecard. Rambo, he had a really great week. He had a great 69 holes until he got to the Green Mile on Sunday. And just to, I'm sure most people were following along with this, but I can't overstate the timing of all of this, Greg, right? I mean, the Scottie's lead was shrinking. Rahm actually had the lead by himself for like 12 minutes, I think it ended up being, and there were guys tied at the top. I mean, it was wide open very late in this golf tournament, and Jon Rahm was playing some pretty stellar golf until he got to the Green Mile.
Yeah, he hit some phenomenal iron shots, and he had some really nice par saves early on that front nine. And then he kind of went on a little run. Like it makes birdie at 8, and then the birdies at 10 and 11. But he had a great look at 12, a great look at 13, a great look at 14. And he was in the exact same spot as Scottie Scheffler after his second shot on 15 and didn't convert any of them. And he had a real chance to put Scottie behind the 8 ball and make this. If things were moving fast for Scottie, he could have made it move a whole lot faster if Scottie was even looking, which I legitimately don't know if he was. But he became a serious factor, and a couple of inches here and there, a couple of lip outs here and there away from winning his third major.
That was the thing, I loved the concept of Scottie Scheffler, Bryson DeChambeau, Jon Rahm all going for number 3 to break out of that tie all of 2. I want to get your thoughts, Greg, and we might never know the answer to this, but the shot that he hit on 17, the par 3, it was happening as Scottie was starting to build that lead again. Maybe it was a 2-shot lead, and he was vibing on the back nine. All those holes are close to one another, so you could feel what was happening. He missed it left. It bounced hard. It rolls into the water. I'm wondering if that was a mistake of aggression or a mistake of execution. You know what I mean? Like, was he trying to just win the golf tournament and try to hit a miracle shot, or was that a mishit that got away from him?
I think it's a mistake in the shot shape. For a guy who hits such a reliable fade, to go to a draw there is the wrong shot. And I think if John could watch that ball respond on the green again, if he watches the tape on that, I think he may agree with me. Where if he hits a cut, even though it's a left flag, started at the flag, fade it to 15 feet, and give yourself a putt. It's the only way to get it close, because he landed that ball. I would say, I guess I could actually measure it on shot length, but from the front edge of the green, it's like 15 paces on, and it bounded off the back into the water. There's not a whole lot of room for him to land it shorter. Maybe he could have landed a little righter, but that shot shape's going to go long. You need to come in there with a little fade so it can receive the ball. I know that's a scary shot with water left, but and look, Scott, it's hard to compare Scottie because he was in a totally different situation when he got to 17. He was in a place where he could bail out. John couldn't, but it's still not the right shot to get it close. So that was my take on the shot on 17. It was just the wrong shot selection. And I think he actually executed it fairly well.
It was a stretch that didn't end well. 16, he had already made bogey. He ends up making a double on 17. Then he finds the water on 18 and ends up making another double there. And he goes from second place finish to a T8 finish. So if you played him in one and done, you got a significant less portion. If you had him in the top 5 market or the top live market, that did not go particularly well for you. But I assume Rahm, maybe I shouldn't assume this. Maybe I'll just kind of throw it out there to you. We're going to Wingsfoot in a couple of weeks. I'm sorry, Oakmont. I was looking at you thinking Wingfoot.
Yeah.
Oakmont in a couple of weeks. I imagine Jon Rahm is going to like his chances there.
He should. He's striping it, right? He's hitting it great. And he got a couple moments there where the putter was going. And, one other positive thing that I'll say on Jon Rahm is it looked like he was having fun.
Yeah.
Now there were some things that didn't go his way. Like it's one thing to say, okay, well, when you play really good golf, you're going to be having fun. But it was a brutal lip out at 13, a really close look at 12. Like there were some moments where he could have, and in the past would have gotten rather frustrated. So I enjoyed seeing him kind of the way that he when they missed. There was like a little smile there. He seemed to be in a much better place mentally, and he really did all week. Yeah, he did not seem as aggravated, and he put himself in the mix here for the first time in a while. Had a real chance to win this tournament, and I think going forward in the majors, he'll look back and be able to use this intense competition that he realistically just doesn't get week in and week out.
Let me review the bets, and then I have another thought or two, but this is probably a good time to pull the grid back up here. And thanks to you, Mr. DuCharme, we have once again hit the winner of this golf tournament. I think only 1 week we have not had this on the grid somewhere. So you actually, you doubled up here. You had Scottie Scheffler to win the golf tournament at plus 450. Congratulations. And then you had the big guns over the field, which was a huge conversation leading into the week. Oh, there's only 4 or 5 guys or 6 guys that can win this golf tournament. Well, no matter how long that list was, one of them won it, Scottie Scheffler.
Yes. And as you can see on my outright card, I thought Scottie was going to win this. I thought there was a chance. I thought Bryson would have a great chance as well. I thought for Rory, it was too soon. I didn't think that Rory was going to be quite ready, even though it's such a great golf course for him, which is another thing we can get into if you'd like. But so looking at this, I'm thinking, Bryson, Scottie, those guys are great. We got a little JT and Xander. They have a chance. And Rahm was thrown in there as kind of a bonus. So coming down the stretch on the big guns mantra, I was first of all happy because of all the, conversation online that was taking place on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is going to turn around, and it did. So I was happy about that. And I was happy that one of those guys was clearly going to win pretty much all day yesterday and all day today. That was pretty evident.
Yeah, pretty good finger on the pulse to have Scottie Scheffler as your winner and Bryson DeChambeau as a winner too. They finished 1 and 2 along with your big guns. I have already looked at next week's odds, and Scottie Scheffler at Charles Schwab with Jordan Spieth as the second favorite. Scottie Scheffler is plus 250 to win that golf tournament.
Did Tiger ever get to those kind of odds?
Yeah, he did. Now, there's not as much record keeping that still exists, but definitely at major championships, there were some major championships he was even money, and there were some major championships that I think the shortest he ever got, I think, was like minus 120
at the start of a week.
At the start of like the Masters, yeah.
We are getting dangerously close to that territory. Right, Scottie there, we got him at 4.5 to 1. That is, it's still, you could go Scottie to win and someone else like Bryson, and it's a worthwhile investment if you want to look at it that way. Obviously, if you're going to play Scottie, you can't have 10 guys on your, you can't be playing 10 guys and expect to make any money on it. So you got to be real committed. But you're starting to get to a point where at 2.5, it's like, okay, now it can only be Scottie. It starts to get to even money. It's like, what is it? This is a matchup. Like, instead of big guns, it's Tiger against the field. Those become really hard things. But Scottie is really clearly, deservedly working his way into that kind of number. I mean, Rick, you were seeing the odds all week. He after round 1, he was in 20th place, and his odds got shorter.
He was still the favorite. Yeah, they got shorter. Yeah, exactly right.
It's nuts. So there's not a lot of wiggle room with Scottie and the books. They know how this. They're sharp. They're sharp. They had Bryson as the second favorite after round 1 as well, and he wasn't much closer than Scottie.
We have been spoiled. We have started this year with Rory McIlroy winning the Masters, Scottie Scheffler winning the PGA Championship. We're going to Oakmont. We are going to Royal Portrush. But this stretch of boppers, I mean, the last 6 have been those 2, Scottie again, Xander twice, and Bryson. I mean, we're on a pretty good stretch here, brother.
Yeah, it's an all-timer. And I just think there are so many cool things with this, Rick. Like, Jim Nantz mentioned it on the broadcast that Rahm Scheffler put the jacket on Rahm, and then Rahm put the jacket back on Scheffler. Now Scheffler puts the jacket on Rory. I wouldn't be surprised if Rory's putting the jacket on Scheffler next year. And we've seen that kind of thing at the Masters. And there's this group that is emerging and separating themselves from the rest of the world of golf. And while Scottie is clearly the top of that list, the guys that are chasing him are really good too, but it's a small number. It's Bryson, it's Rahm, it's Xander. Those are the guys, and Rory, that are kind of ready, it seems like, to take him on any week. Then you have guys like Colin Morikawa, who's kind of at that next level down, who can go in at any time too, but they're probably just a small level below. The level of consistency that this group has shown in majors has been sensational, and it's just a joy to cover and a joy to watch.
A lot of good golf being played globally right now, and we are taking it all in. We're doing our best to analyze it and discuss it and entertain along the way. I think, Greg, I'm sure we will talk plenty more about the first two majors of the year moving forward. But anything else for tonight that we need to take a crack at?
What is this? Well, I guess 2 things. 1, Scottie's still 28. He'll be 29 next month. Mm-hmm. How long does this go on for? That's one. The other is more short term. This year, what does Scottie have to do to pass Rory for Player of the Year? It's 4th in a row.
Well, he's going to have to win another major.
You think it has to be another major? Yeah,
I mean, Rory's got a signature event, the Players, and the Masters, which, I mean, I know it shouldn't, because you're only saying, hey, who's the player of this year? It shouldn't matter that the Masters was the career Grand Slam, but
it does.
It's going to matter.
It matters to the voters.
Correct. The voters are going to take that. So you have to at least start with another major, and then I'm still not sure you're there.
Which is crazy.
It's crazy, but I mean, Xander wasn't the Player of the Year last year. He won 2 majors.
Yeah. The difference is Scottie's only 1 win away. So if he wins another major, he would be tied with the win total.
It would be 3-3.
Yes. And 1 is a major, 1 is 2 majors, 1 is a major and a Masters and a Players. Mm-hmm. So that, that it could get really interesting. But I thought at the Masters, it was like, it might be over. Player of the Year might be over right now. And I don't think it is anymore.
You could get me to say if Scottie wins another major, and then neither of them win again, whoever wins the tour championship, I guess.
Yeah. I could see that for sure. So what do you think long term? How long does this go on for Scottie?
History says not much longer. My brain and my heart say we might just be getting started here. There's a couple of things. So we have seen a lot of 1-year windows, 2-year windows, even 3-year windows. 3 is pushing it, but this has happened before. Padraig Harrington, Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, et cetera, right? We are still not in unheard of territory yet, but we're going to be really soon. We're going to be really soon where it's only like Tiger and Rory, and that's it in the modern game. So I look at history and say it's hard for guys to play this well for this long. Now, the scary part is I think he's getting better. Like, I think he is improving. I mean, the skills are sharper. He's adding new dimensions. I think that he is uniquely qualified mentally. Jordan Spieth is a Looney Tune. It was only a matter of time before things go sideways there. Rory McIlroy in the drought. I mean, the things that did to him, and having to be the face of the PGA Tour. Like, Scottie's just like, whatever, man. Like,
I just want trophies.
Yeah.
And I don't even have a place to put them.
I just, like, it's a really unique situation. So I think it's going to continue until proven otherwise.
Even like Jon Rahm is a little bit of a hothead at times, right? You got some emotional control to deal with. Scottie's already done that. I also cannot stop thinking about his record in junior golf. It's, he won. Jim Nantz said one on the broadcast. He won 40 of 42 tournaments as a junior player in one stretch. I had heard before that he won 96 junior tournaments in Texas. It's like, so all along, the guys that he's playing against now, he's been beating as a junior player, beating them in college, beat him on the Corn Fair, and now he's beating him on the PGA Tour level. Like, this is just what he does. And he doesn't care how much money he's made. He doesn't care about any of it other than this week I want to win. That's an incredibly rare thing in the professional game now. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he played PGA Tour champions when he's over 50.
And just beat the crap out of those guys.
Just go, because that's just what he wants to do. It's like, well, if you retire and play pickleball, well, you don't have to play pickleball. You're retired. You don't have to do anything. But you don't want to sit on the couch. So what do you get to do what you want,
right?
And Scottie's doing what he wants right now. So this isn't like there's anything he has to get done. He doesn't have long-term goals. He's not chasing a career Grand Slam. We may say he is, but he's not. He's chasing the Charles Schwab Challenge.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing.
No, he's
for
chasing,
everybody else.
He's chasing the tee shot on Thursday at the Charles Schwab Challenge.
Yeah, even better.
And then when he hits that, he's going to be chasing the approach shot on the first hole at the Charles Schwab Challenge.
Yeah, that's like playing against a robot.
Yeah, and the results are reflecting that, quite honestly.
So it's just like, I could see we saw a slump this year. We've seen a slump from him.
Yeah, he went 8 tournaments without winning. It was horrible.
I mean, what's he doing?
He just won he won his last 2 starts by like 13 shots combined.
By 8 and by 5. Yeah, 13. He came into this week first in strokes gained total, second in strokes gained off the tee, first in approaching the green, 19th in putting, his best of his career. We haven't even talked about the switch to the claw got wiped away by the hand injury. And the switch to the claw has taken a guy who was a bad putter Then he switched to the mallet, became an average putter, and won everything he played in. And now he's gone to the claw. And there was a fluke injury because he isn't paying a chef on Christmas Day.
Yeah, because he's cheap. If he wasn't so cheap, he'd have 4 more
right. That was the story. And you forgot about the switch to the claw. And it's made him the most complete player in the game.
He can still get 18 spots better with the putter.
Yeah. Maybe he will.
It's only 19th. Maybe he 107 editions of the PGA Championship are in the book. Scottie Scheffler, your most recent winner, his 3rd major championship, a turbulent but defiant one, a 5-shot victory over Harris English, Bryson DeChambeau, and Davis Riley. And he will head right home to Texas to play again at the Charles Schwab Challenge, and we will play again as well. We're going to tee it up next week on the Second Cut. We have had an unbelievable 6 weeks with this podcast. The feedback has been great. The views and like all that stuff has been, it's just really, really cool to do. And we're going to keep rocking and rolling.
I've loved doing it. And all the support from all of you has been phenomenal, sensational, spectacular. So all of you guys, just like Scottie Scheffler, are number 1 in my book.
I love it. Big thanks to producer Mina. She is doing all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there is Greg DuCharme. You can find him at The Real GFD, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The Second Cut. We'll catch you next time.